inshallah. Okay. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So we were mentioning yesterday, something could be the difference between something, Allah forbidding something and Allah not recognizing something. So valid meaning it's recognized by the Sharia. Invalid is not recognized by the Sharia. Right? And the simplest kind of situation we mentioned yesterday was theft. I steal Muhammad Shaman's car. Now it's mine. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't steal his car. And if you steal it, it won't be yours. Right? So he's forbidden me to steal it, and he doesn't recognize the fact that it's mine. Right? Somebody commits zina, may Allah protect us. I want to have a child. I'm going to commit zina. It's not your child. So I've forbidden you from doing that act, and now this child that's been born, this woman gave birth to, is not your child. Yeah, but it is. Like, no, it's not. It's not recognized by the Sharia. Right? So, so that's what we mean by not valid. It's not recognized. Right? You are prohibited to worship the devil. So at dhuhr, you worship the devil. Don't do it, and it doesn't count as dhuhr. Right? That's simple kind of things. Right? So now we're talking about fasting on Eid. So, well, isn't fasting called for in general? So yeah, it is fasting. It is called for in general. So these are things that are not inherently prohibited, unlike zina, unlike theft, unlike worshipping the devil. It is not innately. It is not prohibited in itself, right? It's not that Allah is prohibiting you from fasting itself, but Allah is prohibiting you in fasting on that day. So we ask the question: is it valid or invalid? We say if the sin is separable, okay, from the act of worship, then it is valid. If the sin is inseparable from the action, then it is invalid. So the sin of fasting on Eid, could it be achieved in any other way? The answer is no. The sin of a woman fasting on a Monday, even though her husband has the day off and he specifically told her, don't fast, right? Her sin could be achieved through fasting and through other than fasting. So therefore, her fast is valid but sinful, right? Your dad is talking to you and you're like, dude, stop talking to me. Allahu Akbar. So you use the prayer as a way to ignore your dad in a rude way. So it's sinful, but the prayer counts because you could do the same sin by just walking out of the room. You could be rude to somebody in many ways, right? You killed yourself by fasting. You killed yourself by praying, right? You killed yourself by making wudu, right? So you jumped into boiling water, a vat of boiling water to make ghusl. Does the ghusl count? Yeah, it counts. Did you kill yourself? Yeah. Is it haram? Yes. But the two coincided. They're conceptually separable, as opposed to praying after Asr is not conceptually separable. Is not conceptually separable from Asr itself. Right? The sin of praying after Asr is not separable from the prayer. You can't separate them. So when you can't separate them, it's invalid. When you can separate them, they're valid. Okay. And then it says it is offensive, which means haram here. It is sinful to fast on Yom Shak. So, i.e., you don't know that it's Ramadan yet, right? That's called Yom Shak, the day of doubt. You don't know if it's Ramadan or not. You can't do that. So it is A, sinful, and B, doesn't count. So even if it turned out that it was Ramadan, it wouldn't count, right? Unless one's fast coincides with that day. So it happens to be a Monday. You're fasting Monday today, not because it is the actual beginning of Ramadan, but because it is because you fast Mondays, right? You fast Thursdays or whatever, something like that. You do qada, something like that. That's fine. Okay. Okay. Making up. So it says making up an fast and expiation. So it says anybody who has an intentional, okay, anybody has intentional vaginal intercourse in the daytime during Ramadan, right, must make up the fast and perform an expiation. Okay, so the kafara in the Shafi school, the kafara of fasting 2 consecutive months or freeing a slave or feeding the poor is something that is specific to intercourse in the Shafi school, right? So somebody was fasting a current fast of Ramadan. It was Ramadan, They were fasting. They knew that it was haram to have intercourse while they were fasting. They intentionally had intercourse while they're fasting. Okay? So this person breaks their fast. They have to complete that fast. They have to make up the fast. And they also have to expiate. And they also might be punished by the court. Okay? So that person breaks their fast. You've broken your fast by doing that. This person has to make up that fast. This person has to do a kafara. They have to expiate. And there could also be illegal repercussions because, you're right, this person, so fasting is a legal issue, right? As well as a moral issue, right? Just like in Jordan, for example, Jordan is not religious, religion is not, it's not like a religious state or something like that, but it's part of the law. Law of the land is that you have disrespecting Ramadan is a criminal offense, and anybody who publicly eats in Ramadan, even if they're non-Muslim, could be sent to prison for 2 weeks, right? So there could be something like that. You go to prison for 2 weeks for breaking your fast, right? Or something like that, right? Um, Side point, in principle, the fines are un-Islamic, right? So basically, if you look at the had punishments, all the punishments in the Sharia, none of them have anything to do with money. So the concept of fining somebody as a punishment is problematic and in principle does not exist and is in principle haram. You can't fine people. You can imprison people. You can beat people, right? So isn't that interesting, right? Like in the West, generally, like corporal punishment is considered immoral, whereas fining is fine. Whereas in the Sharia, generally, corporal punishment does have a place, right? Whereas
Take,
fining
yeah,
doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
taking it a step further, not only is fining ubiquitous in the West, fining with interest. You
Yeah,
don't pay the fine, you have to pay interest on the fine.
yeah, but that I would say that's something different. That's to do with just the way they see money, right? So even with your taxes, right? Um, or like you didn't get they didn't the IRS didn't give you money back yet, so then they're going to pay you back with interest because they just see money as tied to interest all the time. It's like Allahu Akbar, yeah. Khair. Okay, so anyway, so what if you didn't know that you couldn't have intercourse? You just became Muslim, or you became Muslim last year. You had no idea that intercourse is related to fasting, right? A, it's not sinful. B, it doesn't break your fast. C, there's no kafara, right? So if you do something that you didn't even know you couldn't do, I had no idea that it was even related to fasting. How is it even related, right? Um, you know, you went to a Muslim country. I became Muslim in Egypt, and like people don't say, "Oh yeah, you can't have intercourse." That's not a thing that like it's not what normal experience of Ramadan is like. Okay, you went to the masjid and everyone's hungry and everyone's not drinking. That's what people talk about. And they're not like, "Oh my God," you know. They're not necessarily talking about that. So the average person who is not that well educated would not know about these things. And so you're just a new Muslim and so khalas, you didn't know about it. End of story. Um, so that wouldn't break your fast. And there'll be no kafara. Similarly, for a woman, mutlaqan, without condition, a woman, even if she seduced her husband, right? There's no she does not have to do pay a kafara because with a woman, number one, it's not mentioned in the hadith. Uh, Number two, a woman's fast is broken before intercourse happens, if that makes sense. So basically, something enters her body cavity before the technical amount of the private parts enters her body that we call intercourse. So basically, something enters her body cavity. She breaks her fast, and then intercourse happens. So technically speaking, she can't. She's not possible, right? There is a weak position, right, and it should be followed. If a woman knew that she shouldn't have done that, for example, or whatever it was, it would be better for her to expiate as well. But the relied upon position in the Shafi school is there's no expiation on women. Period. Right? The expiation then is to free a Muslim slave, right? And as we know, um, slaves do not exist today, right? So that doesn't really apply. Okay. So it says if a slave is not found, because they don't exist, then one fast, or you couldn't afford one, then one fasts consecutively for 2 months. What if you get sick and you have to break the fast? You have to start again, right? If you travel, you've got to start again, right? If one is unable to, then he feeds 60 of the poor, giving each one mud of food, one scoop of food, 0.51 liters of grain, right? And so that's what you have to give to 60 of the poor. So you cannot go to option B unless option A is impossible. You cannot go to option C unless option B is impossible, right? So you do actually have to fast 2 consecutive months, unless you're incapable of doing so. Okay, if someone dies while still owing fast days from Ramadan, one mud of food for each day missed is given on his behalf. Okay, so um, you were traveling, for example, and you didn't fast. Okay, so you were able to fast. Okay, what if I was unable to fast? So here's a woman, for example. Ramadan began, she was on her period, and then she died. So she was never capable of fasting those days. And then in which case there's no. So we don't call this kafara, we call this fidya. Fidya is an expiation, not the same as a expiation. It's a what is it? Fidya. I guess it's the same word in English. Expiation, expiation. In Arabic, it's not quite the same. Kafara means to atone, an atonement. Kafara is an atonement, to atone for a sin, right? Whereas fidya is like a payment, like a fine or a compensation, something else. So the point is, you were able to fast and you didn't fast and you died, right? So you were sick and then you were able to fast, but you didn't fast and then you died. So in which case, that before from your inheritance, they're going to take out the money to get one mud for each day of those days that are obligatory to fast. Similarly, somebody has qada prayers, fasts, right? So they didn't pray for half of that, they didn't fast for half of their life, right? So all of these days that should have been made up have to be made up. Um, okay. Similarly, I'm going to skip to this last paragraph. Someone who is ill or making a long journey is not required to fast, but must make it up. If they don't make it up before the next Ramadan, which is an obligation, then they have to pay a fidya as well. So there's two fidyas. One is you were able to fast, but then you died and you didn't fast, right? The other thing then is you have to make up your fast that you missed because of your period, because of your traveling, because you were sick before next Ramadan. If you don't do that, you have to pay for each day. So now you had 30 days to do, you didn't do them. It's now Ramadan again. Okay, you're not going to fast this Ramadan. You're going to have to pay now 30 mud, right? 30 0.51 liters of grain. Okay? And now next Ramadan comes along. You still didn't make them up. You have to do it again. Okay, does that make sense? So it's an obligation. If you're sick, whatever it is, you don't have to fast now, you don't have to fast tomorrow, but you have to fast before next Ramadan. If you don't do that, then you have to pay an expiation for each day that you didn't do before Ramadan. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now it says somebody who is elderly and unable to fast must give 0.5 mud of food for each day that they missed. Right. So now this person is chronically ill. They cannot fast now or later. So what happens? Their obligation um, shifts from fasting to charity. Right. So this tells us of the connection between fasting and charity. They're tied to the hip. Right. One is a substitute for the other. Right? So that's why at the end of Ramadan, you give zakat al-fitr to compensate for the problem in your fast, right? So so elderly meaning chronically ill, it is not possible to fast without causing serious problems to yourself, right? This person has, may Allah protect us, type whatever, type 3 diabetes, is it? Type 2 diabetes, how is it? Someone who could not possibly fast, they have to take, is it type 2?
I think it's type 1 has insulin dependent.
Right, it's type 1, sorry then. So type 1, so this person has type 1 diabetes, they can't fast, period, khalas, right? So they just don't fast. They're not obliged to fast some of the day or any of the day, just don't fast, right? Somebody has to take certain medication every single day. I have to take 3 times a day. I have to take this medication, oral medication, for example. If there's no other way to take it, you just don't fast, period. Right? So this person, their obligation is to feed the poor instead of fasting. Okay. Um, but not somebody who is temporarily sick, right? So somebody who's temporarily sick, no, they're obliged to fast. And then, okay, I have to wait 2 years. They say, yeah, I think in 2 years you should be able to fast. Okay, just wait 2 years and then start fasting. That's it. A woman, for example, she was pregnant every year. Every single year, she's pregnant or breastfeeding, pregnant and breastfeeding for the last 5 years. She hasn't fasted for the last 5 years, but she's temporarily incapable of fasting. It's not a permanent thing. So a woman who is pregnant or nursing uh, uh, and fears for herself, she breaks her fast and must make up that fast. If she fears for the child alone, she must make up the fast day and offer an expiation for each day missed. The expiation again is a mud. So, if a woman who is concerned for her own safety, she is like somebody who is sick. She just doesn't fast and makes up the fast before next Ramadan if she's able to. If she's not able to, it's fine. But if she is able to and doesn't do it, then she has to pay an expiation, as we mentioned. So, a woman who is pregnant or she's breastfeeding and she feels it's going to harm her, as opposed to she's only doing it for the baby, she is totally fine. She's totally fine, but she broke her fast for the baby alone. She's totally fine, but for in order to get milk for the baby alone, she broke her fast. In which case, she's going to break her fast, make up her fast later on, and on top of that, pay 0.51 liters of grain for because she broke her fast for somebody else. Similarly, a what is it? What was that film with Cliffhanger? Was it called with the Cliffhanger show where he has to climb up the mountain?
Yeah, there's a movie called Cliffhanger. I'm impressed you've seen it.
I think I watched like half of it.
It probably came out in 1995 or something.
Yeah, but it was famous. I just know it from that Stallone had like the most impressive calves in the world, and everyone was like, "Man, I want to have calves like Stallone." Like yeah, um, so something like that. Like he was like when at the peak of his bodybuilding or whatever it was or something like that. Anyway, um, hardcore TV guy me, right? Uh, I didn't. I haven't watched. I didn't have I haven't had a TV since I think I was like 15 or 14 or something. So I must have like really compacted everything in from the age of like 10 to 15. Um, anyway, what I was gonna say was you climb up a mountain, right? You have to go and climb a mountain right now to go and save somebody. Okay, it's 10 a.m. Okay, and you're fasting. So okay, fine, break your fast. Eat whatever you need to eat and go. Right. So you break your fast to save somebody or to save an animal, right? Um, save a person, save an animal, save your dog, right? As we all know, Muslims hate dogs, right? We want to kill them, right? Is that actually true?
No,
It's
but
not, right?
culturally, unfortunately,
Yeah,
yes.
culturally it's true, right? This kind of thing like, oh, it's like a rat, you know. So can you go around killing rats? And we can kill rats. I mean, that can you torture rats? And they can't do that, right? I mean, can you torture dogs? You can't. So it's not true. They're filthy. It doesn't make them evil, right? We can use them for hunting, and they're mentioned in the Quran and mentioned in Surah Al-Kahf, right? About the dog, right? Um, and can you go around killing dogs? You can't go around killing dogs. And if you're gonna
Yeah, can I?
go ahead, Sham, yeah.
So, On this topic of dogs, I wanted to just ask you something.
Hmm.
It's not about killing dogs, but so I saw a video in Malaysia where there are people with dogs, and what they do is they give Muslims plastic bags over their hands so they can pet the dogs. And I saw the video, and I was going to ask you about it because based on everything you have told me, it seems like this is just doing too much because not, it's the saliva that gets on our clothes, permitting it, not we can't pray in them. But this idea of giving Muslims bags to cover their hands to touch dogs
Yeah, it doesn't make
seems
sense, right?
extraneous.
It's like, imagine if you like, so, this is not just something like a side thing. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specifically mentions using dogs to hunt in the Quran, right? So you can imagine you have a dog that you hunt, but you don't pet it on his head. Like, is that normal? That's a bit weird, isn't it? Like, thank you, dog. It's like it's a bit weird. Like this normal thing like pet a dog, a good boy, right? Like you have to train the dog, right? It's like how would you train the dog if you don't pet it on his head? I mean, it seems a bit strange. I don't think it's not normal. It's kind of, it's like takalluf, yes. So it's kind of like fake. Better than that was somebody who was in Norway. He said, yeah, I'm going to set up a Shafi'i laundrette service for, because there's so many dogs in Norway and they keep licking your trousers. So like, and I was like, Habibi, why would you have to send it to a laundrette? Like, let's imagine, for example, you have a dog and the dog it's wet, and the dog rubs its leg against you. Okay, what do you do? Like, how complex is it? You get a bit of mud, put it on, and then pour some water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's it. Like it took 3 seconds. So now it's like you've made this religion, which is almost what's it called? It's like Jew like some like some Orthodox Jews where it's like a really weird religion. Like they're waiting for that candle to turn out, right? Or like waiting. I hope a non-Jew comes along to like press the lift, right? It's like Habibi, just you know, what was the point of the Sabbath? The point of the Sabbath was to focus. Like you can press the lift, you're just going downstairs. That's not considered work, is it? You know, where it just becomes silly, right? Um, and it's like what are you doing? So like uh, is it recommended to go like I pat dogs in the head, but is that like strictly recommended? It's probably not. But like if you have a guard dog, which is totally fine. You have a sheep dog, which is totally fine. Of course you're gonna pet it on its head. And why would you have to do it why would you have to do it with a bag?
Sheikh, just to add to that, my cousin who lives in Singapore, she told me that she has met many Muslims in Singapore who have straight up told her that dogs are haram. And I told her, first of all, I said, again, and I was trying to paraphrase you, I was like, dogs are also creatures from Allah, A. B, yes, they're haram to eat, but like the notion that like you can't even be in contact with them seems to be cultural.
Exactly. So, but that doesn't even mean anything. Like dogs are haram. That's not a statement. So haram is a human action. So like dogs are haram what to look at. So I remember the same thing in Jordan. Like you couldn't have like in a textbook you couldn't have a picture of a dog because it's bad. It's like doesn't make any sense, right? Can have you could that's like against the education department will not okay it because kids are not supposed to see dogs something like that. Like it's kind of very weird. So that's wrong. Anyway, so your dog, Lassie, right? Is she's I watched Lassie. Um, that's old school though, right? Um, she is stuck up. It was a she, right? Lassie was a she. Pretty sure it was a she, right?
I'll look it up, inshallah.
Inshallah. Anyway, your dog anyway is stuck on a mountain, and you break your fast in order to go and save the dog, right? Totally fine. And subhanAllah, it's going to come out tomorrow. The next day on my Instagram post was this quote from a Hanbali fiqh book, which is like this is so interesting. Compare views of dogs versus East and West, right? Like if your dog, right, Sham, you had a dog, and your dog, I annoyed the dog, and the dog bit me. What's going to happen to your dog?
In the US, that
Yeah.
dog will probably be put down.
Exactly. Right. So here's this quote from a Hanbali fiqh book. Okay. And in the Hanbalis, they're even stricter than the Shafis when it comes to dogs. There is a scenario like there are, I think, like black dogs and all that. You can't keep black dogs, something like that. They're a bit stricter. Anyway, so they said, so the Prophet told us to kill, what's it called? Like vicious dogs. So they said, imagine if there was a female dog and she had puppies, okay? And somebody went up to the puppies and the dog bit and she bit them. Would she now be in the category of dangerous dogs that has to be killed? The answer is no. Say why? Because that's what animals do by nature. Animals protect their young. So it's your fault for going next to her and going next to her puppies, right? And subhanAllah, so what they say is no, we would not kill the dog, but rather we would move her to a place where she's not where people won't disturb her and therefore she won't be a danger to people, right? And this is a Hanbali fiqh book, and subhanAllah. But people have these very, it's not real at all. Um, I think a lot of cats are pretty satanic, aren't they? I think it'd be quite evil. Some cats are very evil. Um, Wallahu alam. Chickens are pretty evil. Um, like little mini raptors. Khair. Anyway, going back to our topic. So you broke your fast to save somebody or to save an animal. Same thing. You're gonna have to do. What you've done is halal. You're gonna have to do qada before next Ramadan, and you're gonna have to pay a fidya because you broke your fast for somebody else. If you break your fast for yourself because you're sick, that's different. But if you break your fast for somebody else, then there is a kafara. Okay, so that's the woman, for the pregnant woman who broke her fast solely for her baby, the nursing woman who broke her fast solely for her baby, the person climbing a mountain, something else like that. Um, you know, this person's going to have to break their fast because they broke it solely for the other person. They're going to have to do. They're going to have to pay a expiation as well, which is going to be amud. Okay. Someone who is ill and or making a long journey is not required to fast today, but must make it up the fast before next Ramadan. Right? Can you in principle do the following? Like I live in let's say for example it's what is it? Let's say right now we're getting towards summer. Okay, so I live in Sydney. Okay, I live in Sydney in Australia, and they're now the days of Ramadan are getting much longer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to always plan to be traveling in these longer days, and I'm always going to go and do qada of them in Canada, where the day is super short. Can I do that? You can do that. It's in principle valid. Right? Is it kind of a trick? Yes. That was not ideal, but you can in principle do that.
Sheikh, can I ask a question about that?
Bismillah.
Is the principle behind what you just said, which is allowed, is it that when Islam was founded, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the deen, it was at a time when it was, I mean, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have known that Islam was going to spread, but at the same time, is the thinking that, for example, if someone is fasting in Alaska, we've talked about this before, that it's easier for them to pick the next closest city, which might be Seattle, because the difficulty of fasting in a place where there's only 2 hours of darkness is just too insurmountable.
It's not, yes, it's basically what we're going to say is it's like this difficulty. So basically, difficulty is a bit vague. Okay. And so what we're always going to try and do in fiqh and in law in general is try and avoid vague things and try and find tangible things. So I can't say, for example, he drove dangerously. I can say he was going over the speed limit. Because you say dangerously, it's like, well, what do you mean? Right? There's going to be certain scenarios kind of a bit vague. So I can do things like speed limit. I can say like he didn't have his belt on, he didn't have his lights on, and it was within 30 minutes of sunrise or whatever it was or something like that. There's different criteria you can put there. So the same thing in the Sharia by default, we're gonna work with very tangible things and not vague things like dangerous or difficult. So we're gonna say the default is fasting is based on sunrise, sunset. And as long as it actually exists, right? So again, like Alaska might not exist right now, but um, as long as it exists, we're going to go with that, even if it's difficult. So if it actually exists, if there is a sunrise and a sunset, I mean, a fajr and a sunset, sorry. And it's like 22 hours, then we'll go with it. And then then we'll go with that. And whoever finds it too difficult, it's going to harm them, then they don't fast, right? That's fine. But otherwise, the default is it's there. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, then, is to say because it's valid, you can still pick and choose where you want to do that on planet Earth. So basically, you went to Argentina. Like when it was hard for you in Alaska, you went to do it in Argentina, right? At the right at the right at the bottom of Argentina, where the day was like the opposite, much easier. And then when it was hard in Argentina, you went and did it in Alaska, you know? And because you still have a fajr and a sunset, we're still going to recognize it regardless. Even though we know what you were doing, you're just trying to make it easier for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Um, right. Okay.
Sheikh,
Go ahead, Mahmoud.
in the case of the able person that did not make up the fast from one Ramadan to the next, and then they pay the expiation, are they still required to make up the days that they didn't
Yeah,
fast, or does
yeah,
the
yeah. Yeah,
expiation?
so there's
Oh,
so
okay.
there's no paying for fasting apart from somebody who is now chronically who can never fast anymore. So as long as somebody is physically capable of fasting, there's no such thing as paying for fasting. It doesn't exist.
Okay, that makes sense. Jazakallah khair.
Perfect. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop here, inshallah, and we'll go to spiritual retreat, inshallah, next week, inshallah. خير إن شاء الله. Okay, جزاكم خير. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. So.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته وإياكم.
I think you and I are both in California again, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Inshallah, I'll let you know I'll try and post it somewhere, but I'll let you know, inshallah, what the next talk is,
Please, my wife and I would love to see you and your wife too, inshallah.
inshallah. We're gonna get, inshallah, we're working on the Sheikh Farid Dingle t-shirts, inshallah, soon.
Actually, we prefer a thobe or
Okay.
no, a Sheikh Farid lungi. I'll wear it
Yeah,
every day.
yeah, inshallah. With some
Yeah.
catchphrase.
No, I already came
So,
up with one. Madras Murid.
Madras Murid. Okay, what about some quote from the Matrix?
Uh,
I think that'd be
Matrix
good.
Murid.
Yeah.
By the way, on a
I
side
know Kung
note,
Fu. It'll say I know Kung Fu.
I was gonna tell you that a friend of mine who grew up in Nepal as a